There was a mayor. We won't name the mayor.
We won't name him.
And people were asking, how are you going to balance your budget? And a mayor of Chicago said, I don't know, sell those parking meters or something. I mean, think about it. Or here's another one. How are you going to pay for schools? I don't know. Isn't there a Skyway? Sell that for 100 years, right? Like how politicians come to conclusions in this city. I would just say it like this. I have no doubt that I will be the greatest freaking mayor of all time.
Please welcome to the stage your very own mayor, Brandon Johnson. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Come on in. They love you. They love you. All right. How you doing?
I feel like I'm in my son's bedroom. Especially
Is he also? Okay, well, I think you should probably get the Malort out of there.
I mean, my goodness. Thank you for making me a better parent. No, I'm doing great. I mean, this is the only place in the world where people will cheer you on for drinking alcohol. I mean, the bar is pretty high here in Chicago.
It's the wormwood, they're saying. It's the wormwood. First of all, thank you for being here. It's lovely to meet you. At the very beginning of your term, there's still a bright twinkle in your eye. The future possibilities lie before us. One thing that I've just noticed is, so you talk a lot about collaboration, and there are these stories that you said something an alderman is critical, you call the alderman right away, you talk it out. There's another story that there's a regular meeting, and before people thought it was like death, now people actually want to go to it. Just saying, that's what people are saying. No, I'm just reading the news here.
No, it's kind of like going to a Bears game these days too, by the way. It's tough right now, yeah.
Because of all the trouble that they're having. And now, can you just talk a little bit about what you mean by a collaborative approach and how it differs from your predecessors like Lori Lightfoot and Rahm Emanuel?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is amazing. And I like the sash. That certainly probably is speaking to why I have that twinkle in my eye because of the reflection off of your sweater.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, look, being collaborative is really necessary. I mean, that's what the city of Chicago voted for, and the type of contention that have kept so many of our neighborhoods stratified and without the necessary resources and investments that are needed. People are tired of that. And for me, it really comes down to listening to people, trying your best to understand, even if they are speaking a slightly different political language, but it's trying to come to an understanding of where they are and then moving them beyond that conversation. It's the benefit, I believe, of having taught middle school. Because so there's some middle school teachers here, which, to be a middle school teacher, you're really a saint, quite frankly, yes. But working with young people and working through the different dynamics that come with adolescence, honestly, it's the best preparation to oversee a city council meeting.
Yeah, the kids are kind of gross at that age, huh? They're all gross.
The type of aromas that come out of 7th graders, there are just things that are happening in their life and their bodies that you really should have a special place just for them for those couple of years. Yeah, here's the thing though, seriously, one thing about this moment, and it's reflective of, honestly, the perspective of middle schoolers. Middle schoolers are young enough to still have aspirations, but they are old enough where some of the anxieties are starting to set in. And quite frankly, what I've discovered in the midst of this work and why collaboration is so important, you are literally having a tug of war between anxiety and trepidation and hope and aspiration. Now, I'm confident that hope and aspiration will prevail, and the type of anxiety that exists in the city of Chicago right now, we're gonna bring more hope, more aspiration, more promise, so that the anxiety that people have experienced over the last couple of administrations, we're setting a new course for a better, stronger, safer Chicago.
Hey, a little let's go Brandon, but that one's like on the level. We're taking it back. Yeah, it's our word now.
Okay, well, I don't know if that's helping my anxiety right now.
Think about how your words make people feel. So you talk about this balance between, trepidation and hope. There's also a sense in which you're at the very beginning and you're building all these relationships, but at some point you're going to start having to make hard decisions, right? What happens when this collaboration, this effort to rebuild relationships meets just hard disagreement, where there's only so much money to go around? You have a big budget shortfall, there's a migrant crisis, and there's communities that have been neglected, there's people who want more police reform, there are people who want more policing, right? What happens when this collaborative approach meets a point at which you just say to the Chamber of Commerce or another group, no?
Yeah. Well, here's the benefit of having 4 years in one term. You don't have to get it all done in one budget. And I'm going to work hard to make sure that we are bringing people together around the values in which I ran on. And when you're talking about systemic inequality that has been the prevailing form of governance for generations, you're not going to right the ship overnight. And what I'm confident in, though, is that we can set this budget up to prepare us for the next set of battles. Look, I didn't get here because, everyone agreed with me, right? People told me no multiple times throughout my life. In fact, in my home, we heard no so much growing up. We just learned that that's just the word that you hear before you ask again. And so that's the exciting part in this moment, is that the type of organizing and the multicultural intergenerational movement that propelled a middle school teacher organizer to the 5th floor, representing the greatest freaking city in the world, anything is possible.
I've had the chance to talk to a number of mayors, and what is always, if there's one thing that I think unites very different places, very different cities, very different challenges, is they're all grappling with problems that are very old, and they're all grappling with problems that don't stop at the city's edge. Things like infrastructure, housing, economic inequality. One challenge that I don't think people really understand, I didn't understand how much it has continued. Can you talk a little bit, just for people that really may not have known this story, about what is happening in Texas and what the governor of Texas and some associated groups have been doing and how it's been impacting your ability to govern in Chicago?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, look, if you would have told me a couple of years ago that I would be mayor of the city of Chicago and the prevailing issue would be, immigration, migration, and asylum seekers, I'm not sure if I would have come to that conclusion. But what I can say is this, that the challenge and the experiences that we're having in America, this is not new to the rest of the world. Global population shift, particularly around the unsettling of government that, quite frankly, foreign policy or American policy has had some impact on the destabilization of states and countries around the globe. Not to mention the fact that we have a real climate crisis in the world. And so the population shift that's happening around the globe is tied to just bad policy. It's tied to the injustices that we are experiencing within the environment. And though I'm clear that the governor of Texas is trying to prove a political point, what we are not going to do in the city of Chicago, flinch and cower under political pressure because someone is too much of a coward to actually stand up for the interests of people around the globe. And so what that means is that as a city, to be welcoming is really the bigger question is, who is my neighbor? And I was raised to follow the main commandment, which is to love with all of your heart, mind, and soul, and treat your neighbor as yourself. And that's what I'm going to continue to do as mayor of the city of Chicago. And we're going to challenge the federal government, the state government, county government to participate, because this is not just a Chicago dynamic. This is a global dynamic, and it's literally going to take all of us to ensure that as global residents that we participate and do our part to ensure that the families that are here in Chicago have everything that they deserve and need, and those who wish to call Chicago their home, that they get to have a secure place in the city of Chicago or anywhere else in this country to make sure that they have what they need. This is a country that's built on the very idea of immigration, migration, and making sure that we're treating those who've experienced harm, that we're also being responsive to those families, and particularly those who live in predominantly Black and brown communities.
Switching gears, are we still mad about the parking meter situation?
So let me just say, so in Chicago, first of all, we're mad about everything in Chicago, right?
That's cool.
Here's the beauty of being mayor is that, first of all, because the way I started, everyone has my cell number. So people just text me random things that's going on in their lives, and they're like, "Come on, mayor, what you gonna do about this?" You know, so it's everything. Cool. It's everything from like their child who just refuses to like get up in time for school. You know,
that's your problem.
Apparently, but you know, when you mention the parking meter, though, just think about how raggedy politics are in Chicago. Just think about that for a second, because people are giving me like grief about how I'm going to pass my first budget. There was a mayor. We won't name the mayor.
We won't name him.
And people were asking, how are you going to balance your budget? And a mayor of Chicago said, I don't know, sell those parking meters or something. I mean, think about it. Or here's another one. How are you going to pay for schools? I don't know. Isn't there a Skyway? Sell that for 100 years, right? Like how politicians come to conclusions in this city, I would just say it like this. I have no doubt that I will be the greatest freaking mayor of all time.
Well, that's a promise. I mean, that's quite an offer. That's quite an offer. The fucking parking meters. What a deal. No one know how to read a contract? There's no lawyer around that said, hold on, this doesn't make any sense.
I actually think the mayor at that time actually was a practicing lawyer. That's why you need more teachers in charge of government.
That's right. I do want to ask, because this is, again, another issue that I think a lot of cities are grappling with. Can you talk a little bit about the CARE program? This is sort of a 911 response to mental health calls that involve mental health professionals as well as police. You're trying to figure out how to move to a system where a lot of these calls don't have police at all. Can you just talk about the implementation and what success looks like? Yeah,
absolutely. So 3 dynamics that are very important to me, and we're already headed in that right direction. Passing Bring Chicago Home, dedicating revenue to actually deal with the unhoused and the homeless dynamic that we have in the city of Chicago. And we're well on our way to bringing Chicago Home, a real estate transfer tax that's going to reduce the transfer tax for 96% of people who move property. The other big dynamic, of course, is eliminating sub-minimum wage. And so we're really close to passing one fair wage. And then this third dynamic there's a movement, and it's called Treatment Not Trauma. And wow, that's a very, very nice holler up there. I mean, I presume she voted for me, or that person voted for me. But Treatment Not Trauma really gets at the core of the dynamics that we're experiencing in Chicago. The level of trauma and the untreated trauma that exists in our society is actually far more severe than we're even reporting. The number of young people, police officers, elders who have gone through life and who have suffered silently. And unfortunately, we have a structure that criminalizes mental health. My administration is committed to passing Treatment Not Trauma to not just reopen mental health centers and make them publicly funded and run, but we also have to make sure that when there's an emergency and someone is having a mental health crisis, that a mental health professional is showing up to that home, to that situation to treat it. And it's important to me, it's important to many people, but I had an older brother who died and had untreated trauma. He died addicted and unhoused. And in many instances, for years, people were meant to feel ashamed of their mental health dilemmas or their mental health crises. And I'm saying no more. People are hurting, people are suffering, people are struggling, and we have to be there to treat those families so that brothers and uncles and nieces and mothers and fathers don't have to die or lose because government did not respond with the right type of intervention. That policing in and of itself is not a response to mental health crises. Mental health professionals are.
Before we let you go, it's a constant refrain I hear in Los Angeles. If it weren't for the winters, I'd move to Chicago in a heartbeat. But now it's fall, and I want to know how to tear up this town while also keeping my beef levels below heartbeat-stopping quantities. Mayor Johnson, let me ask you how to get blown away in the Windy City in a segment we're calling 24 Hours in Chicago. Could a human being live inside the bean? And will this city allow me to do so?
Oh, wow. I'm going to say that you can stare at it, you can hug it, you can take pictures of it.
Can you? Wasn't that an issue for a minute?
Well, it was, but we have since cleared that up. So you can ride your bike in a circle around it, but I'm going to respectfully ask that you not use it as a pillow.
Okay. Have you been to the International Museum of Surgical Science, and is it spooky?
So of all the things that I've done in the city of Chicago, surgical science and spooky, it just feels like a 1980s horror film.
Uh-huh.
So no, but I have not been there yet, but I'm looking forward to going though.
Which is exactly how a person who was looking forward to something would talk about it. Would you say that Chicago is addicted to beef?
I will say, just forgive me for a second. All the vegans and plant-based people in here, I'm so sorry, but Chicago is addicted to beef, yes.
What I love about Chicago, New York is a pizza town, Philadelphia is a sandwich town, Chicago says we're both a pizza and a sandwich town.
So this is why Chicago is awesome, because in any given night, you can have a hot dog with not that other stuff on it, with tomatoes, relish, onions,
Yeah, sure.
hot stuff.
Uh-huh.
You can have a beef sandwich. And we're so committed to eating, we make our pizza and we dig a deep, deep, deep hole into a skillet and fill it up with stuff. We call that deep dish pizza. So pizza, hot dogs, beef, tacos, spaghetti, you name it, it's in Chicago.
Who decided to call regular pizza tavern style? Does tavern style pizza need its own PR person? Because it's fallen behind. I mean, nobody knows about tavern style pizza, and I frankly won't touch this stuff. But this is what always happens. This is what always happens.
I'm not coming to your defense. Get 'em, Chicago. Get 'em.
Get me.
That's got West Coast written all of it. Excuse me, I'm not gonna eat my pizza in a tavern. In Chicago, you will.
No. Excuse me. Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry it's come to this, but I have no problem with the tavern part of tavern-style pizza. My point is only that when I come to Chicago, I'm looking for a fucking well filled with cheese. I'm looking for an aqueduct of meat, sauce, and cheese. And I'm gonna get it. And then I say that, and someone's like, but we also have thin crust. Shut the fuck up.
Which Chicagoans say that when people talk about Chicago. When people say stuff about Chicago who don't live in Chicago, what do we say, Chicago?
I don't understand. What? Wait, everybody shut up. Who's one person that knew? What? No. Wow, that's exactly as welcoming as the mayor was talking about. I'm sorry about that, gentlemen. What?
Yes, that's a real saying.
Shut the fuck up about Chicago, you don't live here? Okay. All right, if you need me, I'll be at the fucking beach. I've lost them completely.
Yes, this feels like 7th period on a Friday.
Similar aroma. Last question for you. What if... Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'll drink... You were asked in a... Before I let you go, you were asked in an interview recently, what's your high point been and what's your low point been? You told them what your high point has been, and they said, what's the low point? You're like, I don't end on the low point. I'm done.
That's right.
You know, you're at the very beginning of this journey. Can you just, and just on a note of like, what it's been like to go from a community organizer and teacher who the previous mayor said didn't have a chance in hell to being the mayor in the greatest city in the world.
So first of all, thank you. Thank you to the city of Chicago for embracing our values. And it has been one of the most remarkable journeys that I've ever had. I mean, it's, you know, my wife and I, sometimes we look at each other in amazement because, you know, you wake up as parents in Chicago and you're just hustling. I mean, you're dropping your kids off over here for school, dropping them off over there for soccer, and you got to take swim lessons somewhere else, and it's just hard to move around. And now the Chicago Police Department comes to my house every morning and pick our kids up and drop them off. You know, but what I've been most impressed by, I'm just saying, you know, all of a sudden you just see your kids and you're just waving as they go into like black vehicles and someone is taking care of them. But honestly, what has been, I'm just saying, you know, I mean, the other form of parenting is just go to your room and look at that device or something. But, you know, going from every single section of this city, and what I've been so impressed by is that the people of Chicago, no one has to know your name to care about you. Like, we look out for each other and we show up for one another. And I've had the privilege over these last 17 weeks of meeting families whose grandparents started a business and now their grandchildren are running multiple chains of restaurants that their grandparents started a generation ago. Or you're meeting these small business owners that are hiring young people because they believe that young people have an opportunity to experience value and worth, that it's worth investing in them. And then you meet these big corporate leaders who are relocating their businesses here. You have $1 billion investment from Google. I spoke with Shana Kelly, CZ Hub, $250 million investment for biotech, the life sciences, logistics. And so what I'm most excited about is that no matter where I go in this city, people ask me the same question: what can I do to help? And that is the soul of Chicago. And I can't wait to serve these next 6 terms.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.